Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, has said that Algeria aspires that the African-Korean cooperation would constitute a qualitative addition to the continent as part of his participation to the Africa-Korea Summit in Seoul. As the world is celebrating the International Day of Innocent Children Victims of Aggression, more Palestinian children are massacred in the Israeli genocidal aggression in Gaza. And Palestine has applied at the International Court of Justice to join South Africa's case against the Israeli occupation's genocide in Gaza. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Semeni. Instructed by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, is taking part in Seoul, South Korea, in the Africa-Korea Summit, which kicked off today. In his speech to the participants to the summit, Mr. Attaf said Algeria aspires that the African-Korean cooperation would constitute a qualitative plus, stressing that this partnership should be strengthened in order to meet the continent's priorities. The Africa-Korea Summit is expected to strengthen the existing partnership between African countries and South Korea since 2006. Algeria's participation in this event reflects its concern for consolidating its strategic partnership with the Republic of Korea, as well as its attachment to common action within the African community with a view to putting partnerships at the service of the continental objectives of peace, security, and development. Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Army General Said Chingriha, has chaired a national symposium on national defense in the face of intellectual war. The Army Chief of Staff said the conference comes amid a complex geopolitical context throughout the world.
The organization of this national symposium, entitled The National Defense Against Intellectual War, comes amid a regional and international geopolitical context characterized by transformations, complexity of crises and threats, making it difficult to expect its evolution, particularly in the midst of the growing competition between the emerging powers to extend their influence and impose their control over the resources and wealth of the countries of the South, ignoring the possible repercussions on regional and international security and on the rights of the peoples to development, to live in security, peace and dignity.
He added that the National Conference aims to shed light on one of the most dangerous wars that target people's security.
The National Symposium that deals with one of the most dangerous forms of wars that threatens people's and states' stability aims to shed light and raise awareness on the strategic danger of what could be plotted against our country through the use of 5G war technologies, as for instance the underhanded practices exercised in recent times by some parties hostile to Algeria. Due to Algeria's constant positions and sovereign decisions, as well as her support for just causes throughout the world.
That was Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Army General Said Chingriha. Now in the western city of Tiarete, the Minister of Water Resources, Taha Derbel, has instructed the companies responsible for carrying out the project to supply the province capital with drinking water from the Shot Sharki water basin to deliver the project within 2 weeks. During his inspection on the progress of work on the project with the Interior Minister, Mr. Ibrahim Red, Mr. Derbel stressed that he is counting on the project to seriously alleviate the water issue, given that it provides 10,000 cubic meters of water per day, calling on the companies responsible for its implementation to mobilize and to face up to the challenges. Mr. Derbel added that in the same time frame, 3 other drillings will be drilled, supplying significant quantities of water, calling on the Director General of the Algerian Water Company to visit the province of Tiaret every week to monitor the management of water distribution to citizens, inform them of any developments and give them a warm welcome. As you followed in our top stories today, as we celebrate the International Day of Innocent Children Victims of Aggression, the ambassador of the State of Palestine to Algiers, Faiz Abu Aita, has said that in this day the number of children killed by the Israeli occupation has reached 15,000, stressing that more are still under the rebel.
وبما أننا في يوم يتعلق بالطفل وبحماية الطفل فدعوني أركز على ما لحق الطفل والمرأة في هذه الحرب الهمجية.
Today we celebrate a day to protect children. Allow me to tell you the sufferings of children and women in this barbaric war that is parallel to the worst Holocaust committed by the Zionists against the Palestinian people. Ladies and gentlemen, as she mentioned, the number of children killed exceeded 15,000, which is the official toll. There are hundreds who are still reported missing, and we cannot locate them, their position, because of the high number of deaths. Up to 10,000 people are under the rubble, in addition to 17,000 children who are orphans without families. UNICEF has warned that children in the Palestinian enclave, which is ravaged by the Israeli genocidal aggression, are living near rubbish dumps and are suffering from diseases. UNICEF MENA stressed that no child should go through this. Children need an immediate ceasefire. Asked about the major health challenges faced by children in conflict zones in Palestine, UNICEF Palestine Communications Chief Mr. Jonathan Cricks has the following.
Many children are not receiving the medical support that they should receive. We see many children who are waiting, who are injured, who are waiting in corridors, sitting on the floor or lying on the floor. The staff in the hospitals is of course exhausted. It's the bed capacity is most of the hospitals are 200, 300 bed capacity, and in addition to that, they don't have enough medical supplies, syringes, compresses, bandages, anesthesics. All this is missing. So the situation of the health system in the Gaza Strip currently is extremely dramatic and very close to complete collapse.
For more details, stay tuned to listen to the whole interview with UNICEF Palestine Communications Chief, Mr. Jonathan Cricks, in a few minutes from now. As aggression by the Israeli Army of Occupation continues in Gaza, internally displaced people are struggling to find shelter in the ruins of the Palestinian enclave. The details with Mariam Barshi.
This was announced by the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, saying that some families are now sheltering in damaged or destroyed facilities. The UN agency said while forced displacement has pushed more than 1 million people from Rafah, thousands of families are now sheltering in damaged or destroyed facilities in Khan Yunis in indescribable conditions. The Director of Public Information of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Gaza Strip, Ines Hamdan, called for an increase in the flow of aid and to protect teams working in the humanitarian field in the Palestinian enclave ravaged by 8 months of Israeli aggression. Ines Hamdan has said in an interview with the television channel BBC Arabic that it is not possible for the teams working in the humanitarian teams to follow up and continue providing services and aid without the basic conditions being met. Meanwhile, a UN official has said that the occupation's military activities since May 6th have paralyzed the humanitarian response in the Gaza Strip. In an interview with the British newspaper The Guardian, the Director of Communications and Media at the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, Juliette Touma, explained the reasons for the paralysis of the humanitarian response in Gaza, stressing that the Israeli military operation has hampered the delivery of humanitarian supplies from the Karem Abu Salim crossing in the south. She added that the Israeli authorities were refusing to grant permits for the movements of UN teams. Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip and its population have caused the forced displacement of around 1.9 million Palestinians inside the besieged enclave, 1.4 million of whom have taken refuge in Rafah, a city cut in two by the Philadelphia Road, a security corridor that marks the border between Egypt and the Gaza Strip.
The head of OCHA's office in the occupied Palestinian territory, Andrea De Domenico, has told reporters in New York that the idea of extending this war for another 6 months of 7 months is simply terrible. The UN official said that there is no safe zone in Gaza.
The more and more you can cross, people leaving with whatever they can gather, putting in donkey cart and piling them up at unbelievable height. And these images of, people with very little things that are moving the entire life to a safer place, if there is anything safe. Despite the, never-ending efforts that the medical teams that have been deployed from all over the world are doing, it is still very, very heartbreaking to see the condition upon which these people, the injured people, can find a place where to be treated. There are gigantic efforts done by WHO also to re-establish or maintain services in the hospital in the middle area and in Khan Yunis area. But as far as Rafah is concerned, there are no more functioning hospitals, properly said. It's only field hospitals.
Palestine has applied at the International Court of Justice to join South Africa's case against the Israeli occupation's genocide in Gaza. The request to the International Court of Justice was made yesterday, Monday. Let's recall that South Africa filed its case with the World Court late last year against the Israeli occupation for breaching the Genocide Convention by committing genocide in Gaza. In this request, the Palestinians said they are directly affected by South Africa's case against the Israeli occupation. Now, in other news, the League for the Protection of Sahrawi Prisoners has called on international organizations to intervene in the face of the extreme conditions of detention that Sahrawi prisoners are subjected to in Moroccan jails. The details with Asya Bikar.
In its 2023 report on the situation of Sahrawi prisoners in the Moroccan occupation jails published Sunday, the League for Protection of Sahrawi Prisoners said Sahrawis in prison suffer from the repression of the Moroccan occupation, which refuses to respect its legal and international obligations. The League for the Protection of Sahrawi Prisoners considers that the transfer of Sahrawi prisoners to Moroccan prisons 1,000 kilometers away from their homes is a form of revenge against them and their families, and a flagrant violation of international law. In this line, the Sahrawi Prisoners League calls for urgent international intervention to prevent Morocco from transferring Sahrawi political prisoners towards prisons located in Morocco, thus expelling them from their homeland and violating their status as citizens of an occupied territory. It also called for putting pressure on the Moroccan state so that it ends the detention of Sahrawi activists whose right to a fair trial must be guaranteed by an independent international mechanism. The prisoners' body also called on the African Union to put pressure on the Moroccan occupation to release Sahrawi political prisoners.
The French newspaper Le Monde said that normalization between Morocco and Israel witnesses a crack which was agreed by observers of the bilateral relations between the two parties drawn at the end of 2020. Mariam Barshi.
In the newspaper's proof of the crack of normalization between Morocco and the Zionist entity, it confirmed that parliamentary diplomacy between them has reached a dead end, explaining that meetings between officials have stopped and direct flights between the two parties are still suspended. She also said that the possibility of Israel opening a so-called consulate in Dakhla in the occupied Sahrawi territories has become distant. On the other hand, Le Monde noted that economic exchanges between Morocco and the Zionist entity are still ongoing, but without publicity, emphasizing that military cooperation is currently at the heart of the rapprochement between the two countries. Last May, the same newspaper reported that Israel had built a factory to produce drones in Morocco during the aggression against the Gaza Strip as part of the normalizations agreement signed between the two sides. It is notable that the tide of normalization in Morocco has receded in recent weeks due to the growing popular anger against the Mahsen and the rising intensity of voices demanding disengagement with the Zionist